Welcome to the Urgency of Awareness podcast. I'm Jody Farr.
And I'm your girl, Nita Renee.
Join us as we gain new awareness of our personal experience
and the experiences of others.
You know it. So that together we can build our capacity, bring it into the relationships we have,
work lives,
yes, and the community.
Let's go.
Welcome to today's episode. Audience, here's the question. If you're right-handed, okay, right-handed listeners, what is geared towards you in our societal system? Like what works for you and what doesn't? Like where do you have to adjust? Now hold up, left-handed people. I haven't forgotten about you. If you're listening right now and you are left-handed, same question. What is geared towards you in the societal system and where do you have to adjust? Come on in and join us today.
Now, Jody, you know that you have to break this down for us, right? Like, I know things that benefit me as a right-handed person, like doors and scissors, right? And even as I think about it as an aviator, you know, being the pilot in command, you know, it's standard that we sit on the left side where all the controls are on my right. Whereas for the co-pilot, you know, they're seated on the right side and all the controls are on their left. So I really never, of course, being right-handed, had to think about it.
Right. And you just gave me a new one. I fly all the time. And I never thought, the lead pilot, is it lead? What is it? Head
pilot in command.
That one. Okay, that one.
Yes.
Yeah, they put him on the left so that all the controls would be on the right. Again, assuming that you're right-handed.
Exactly.
And so you and I, audience members, we live in this societal system that normalizes one identity over another. Okay. And so societal systems always gears towards this identity, which means you often get benefits. Like you just said, things are geared towards you.
Literally.
So, and they're so geared to us that I bet you listeners, we don't even know. Like listeners that are right-handed are like, well,
I've never thought about it.
Yeah, stuff just works. The scissors works, but it's golf clubs. Think about your sporting equipment. You pick up anything in sports if you're right-handed and it works. Your golf clubs work, you know, batting, gloves, all of that. Where left-handed people have to adjust. They have to go out and find that equipment or get the golfing re-gripped.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so left-handed people, my left-handed listeners right now are just like, let me talk. I'll tell you what doesn't work for us. And everything in the office, the mouse, you take a camera.
Literally.
Yeah, and I'm dating myself, but you know, the paper cutter, it still exists. It's out there. That's right-handed. The pencil.
I have one in my office.
Thank you. The pencil sharpener is right-handed.
Yep.
Yes. Weapons
Our desks in school.
Absolutely. Oh, my niece is left-handed. Every fall, we get a big picture of an auditorium, and she'd have to send it out in the text for $25,000. You think I could get a seat that works for me, right? And so, left-handed people are out there going. They're still naming stuff right now.
I promise you, because it's in my head. Like now, I'm thinking of all the things. Right.
I got to talk to our northern. Now, if we got listeners that actually have a winter, because you know in the South they think they have a winter, but they ain't got a winter. So you will see in the middle of winter, 20 below zero, poor left-handed smokers have their blue little fingers out the window trying to get rid of the ashes. Why is that? Because the ashtray's on the right in the car.
You're
shifting.
Funny. They shouldn't be smoking in ankles.
You know, don't shouldn't me. Don't limit me. But if you want to use the ashtray, you got to go through 3 heating vents. You're messed up by the time that happens, right? And so so right-handed people, everything's geared to us, and we've experienced it so much that we're not even aware of it. Meanwhile, left-handed people are true. I'm adjusting all the time.
So true.
Yeah. That becomes their norm.
Wow.
Is adjusting. That I've even had left-handed people go, I didn't even think about it that much because you're just so used to adjusting. Like my one friend who's left-handed said, Jody, I'm just used to standing when it's time to sit down to eat. I'm just used to standing and waiting for everybody to sit down. I'm so used to adjusting, it just becomes a way.
That's crazy. Yeah. And it's so real.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So then Jody, you know, we are speaking on the urgency of awareness and building capacity. So how does like the left-handed, right-handed experience actually help us build capacity?
Oh, that's good.
Like talk to me.
Yeah. So as we increase our awareness and our understanding, then we can show up different. if we don't have understanding or awareness, we often are in reactive mode,
Okay.
or we're even doing things we're just even not aware of. So let me give you this example.
Okay,
So my
talk to me.
friend bought a condo, and a condo was specifically made for a woman who's about 6 feet 4 inches tall.
Oh.
So yes, that's a foot taller than me,
Wow.
and she's left-handed.
Oh.
Now, listen to all my language. I'm not proud. This is not an awareness, or I was not operating out of capacity or nor awareness. Okay, so you got to start with being vulnerable and honest about yourself. We're walking down the hallway and we're coming up to her door, and I go, "Girl, they put your door on wrong." You see, I judge it. So listen to what I
And
did.
I could just see you
Oh,
standing there
yeah.
saying that as
Oh.
you're walking
Oh.
up to the door, like just nonchalant.
Yeah, wait, girl, they put your door on wrong. What the heck? Like, I wanted to go get my tools, you know? And so I'm like, and then she goes to me, she goes, "It's not wrong." And I'm like, I can't accept that, right? So again, rather in that moment, rather than like hit a pause button and try to get understanding, I'm going to make my point, So I take a step back, I look at all the doors, and hers is on opposite. And I go, wrong. I point at him and I'm like, and she's walking through the door and she goes, "Jody, it's not wrong. It's just different." And she's like, "Remember, this was made for a person who is left-handed."
Wow.
I couldn't accept that insight. I could not accept that awareness.
Not at that time.
No, so
it wasn't going.
No, I went like this, like me. Like I seriously was like, whatever. We get to the next room. I go to flip on the light. It's not there. Is where you be if you're left-handed. So I'm like, "Are you serious right now?" I said, "Well, yeah." So I was like, "Well, they put
your mind was racing.
Oh,
at that point.
I was
now
like,
you ready?
Yeah, I was. I was like, "Well, they put your lights on wrong too." Okay. And so then at some point, I go to the fridge and I go to get the fridge. No, it's geared set up for a left-handed person.
Now you on a mission,
girl. So it by the way, audience, if you've never YouTubed, you got to look at it. It is funny. I'm sorry, left-handed people. I know it's not funny because you're getting hit in the head, but it is funny if you watch left-handed people open up when the freezer is on the top, and the fridge is on the bottom, because they hitting themselves in the head. It's a little funny. I'm sorry, but so that didn't work, girl. I was in that condo, and all I want to do is a courtesy flush. I was just like, and I'm like, "No, she did not." Yes, she did.
Not the courtesy
Yeah, no,
flush.
I was trying. I was trying to be respectful. And then the toilet paper holder, man, I was like, it took me forever. And so
I'm glad y'all was good friends.
So, well, I went there twice because we're good friends. So I tried it again. By the third time, listen to me. I'm like, I'm done. And so my friend is like, "You want to come over?" I go, "I really don't." I said, "I'll go to a coffee shop where stuff works for me." So what I didn't have was capacity because I didn't have awareness. And so once I gained awareness, right, that, my experience isn't everybody's experience. And then I can start to gain that understanding.
Yeah.
And I can start to build my capacity.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by that is when we don't take a pause, hit the pause button to try to understand our awareness better, our experience better, and be open to others, what we do is we will make our world smaller.
It's crazy.
Didn't I just do that day? Because
oh my gosh,
so
yes.
rather than, expand and really be reflective about my experience and how my awareness of self and be open to others, I was like, no, I don't want to go there. I want to go where things work for me.
Yeah.
And so
copping out.
I was.
You copped out.
And that so I didn't have capacity. I wanted to just,
stay in your bubble.
Right, stay in my bubble and not. And so when we get awareness,
Yeah.
and we process it and we get deeper understanding,
Absolutely.
things that'll happen is our language will change.
That's beautiful.
Because listen to the language I used the whole time I was there. It was judgmental. It was my way or that way.
Yeah.
So number one, language will change.
Oh,
And it's not language
so
that
needed.
now, audience members, if you know me long enough, I'm not all, it's not politically correct language. I'm not like there's a spectrum. I'm not, but it's language that allows people to feel heard.
Yeah.
Instead of language that was judgmental, which was like it's wrong, and I was getting frustrated. So our language changes. Then our ability to be in situations changes.
Absolutely.
It expands. And we can start to listen. Because once I understood that, oh, wait a minute, this is my experience, this is how I'm showing up, and I hit the pause button, then I'm ready when I do show up to listen to other people's experiences rather than just to react to them.
It's pretty cool how you're bringing this up, because I know we've talked about this before, and you actually opened up or expanded my thinking when we were sitting at your kitchen, your beautiful kitchen table
Thank
that I
you.
love to be at. It's the idea of contracting and expanding, right?
Yes.
Like, and as humans, how it's a natural progression, but there's a lot of times when we'll stay contracted
Absolutely.
versus the expansion. So it's really
Yes.
cool how you're connecting that with building capacity, like just really being able to
Yes.
see each other as humans just by understanding the contracting and expanding idea or
Yes.
concept.
And I think that's so important for our listeners to hear is we're always contracting. You don't think I might have some incident this afternoon where I contract again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But what I now know is I have enough tools, and hopefully our listeners will gain those
Yes.
tools throughout the podcast.
The goal.
Like for number one is hit the pause button. When I feel
Yeah.
myself contracting, it's like, okay, hit the pause button and think about how I'm showing up and be ready to hear maybe how others are showing up.
Exactly.
That piece.
I like it. I like it. So, question for you. Like, with the urgency of awareness, you talk a lot about societal systems.
Yes.
Can you kind of break that down in regards to what you mean by societal system and how this fits into building capacity?
Right. So when I thank you, in the book, in chapter 1, we talk about we all grow up in a societal system.
Okay.
So every listener here, you and I, we're all in this societal system.
Okay.
And many people define it differently, but for ease, I define it with four elements in our societal system.
Okay.
You and I, we have individuals in our societal system.
Okay. Got
We
it.
have institutions. Okay. We
Okay.
all work somewhere. We all
Yep,
volunteer
dealing with
somewhere.
them.
You know, we have communities. And then we have
Yeah.
policies.
Ooh.
Now, in order for an identity to get normalized, what has to happen is those four things once were or currently are geared towards that identity. So we've had right-handed, and so it's not about just the majority. Sometimes people think, oh, well, it's the majority is the normalized dominant. No, and I'll explain. But we've had institutions geared towards right-handed and have policies in place. I meet many people just a little older than myself who talk about their hand was tied down at school if they tried to write left-handed or they got hit by the
remember
ruler.
those.
Yes.
Yeah,
So there
those
were
stories.
policies in place that allowed institutions to tie your hand down if you were left-handed, to allow you to hit, if you were left-handed. And we had our communities often wouldn't do deals left-handed. That's your dirty hand. That's a sinister. So all policies, communities, institutions, individuals, we were saying right hand is better. That is the way to be.
Yeah.
So then what happens is our societal system gears towards right-handed. So every architect who sits down thinks about that condo, thinks about where to put the light switches, goes to the right-handed.
So it's them, and then I would think, how about like the tool space?
Exactly. All the tools and like the pilot, the airplane, how they set it up. So that just becomes, now, have we gotten rid of the policies? I think so. I don't know.
Let us all pray.
Oh yeah, that we're not
I
tying.
will beat
Yeah,
somebody.
I know you would.
Messing with my babies.
And then I got bail money for you. I'm there
Thank
for
you,
you.
sis. I know you
Yeah,
always
yes,
got me. You know
yes.
what I'm saying?
If I'm not there to,
You know
beat
what I'm
with you.
saying? Listen.
But so people will say, well, Jody, we got rid of those policies. Right. But that doesn't mean
Institutions and
that the societal system, that doesn't erase 400
Yeah.
years of doing it a certain way.
Right.
And so we now, it's so natural to gear our tools to right-handed.
Like you said, the architects.
Yep, architects, all of that
Yeah.
gets geared towards the right-handed.
Okay, Jody. So this is good because you got us trying to look at this as a societal system, right? As a whole. Girl, I don't go through my day thinking about a whole, like, entire system because, it's compartmentalized for me. Like being executive director of Project Eve International, it's like, sometimes I might have to like find somebody who does policies, and then I might have to, I think a lot about the individual because I deal with girls individually, right? I get exhausted if I had to think about all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
See,
so
and
what
this
you-
right there is why I love you, because you're always honest and upfront. No human can. We can't hold the societal system and think systemically all the time. So listeners, I'm not saying we don't think systemically.
Girl.
Everybody who's listening, you and I, we can think about the whole system, but you can't hold it all the
Girl,
time,
nah.
right? So here's the question for you. I'm gonna have you answer it, and the
What?
listeners. Out of those four, what one is your primary focus? So when you hear the news, or think about yourself at work, the boss comes and says they have this new initiative. When how do you hear that initiative? Do you hear how it's going to affect the individuals, the institution, the community, the policy?
You know, like just not to cut you off, but I mean, just to answer your question real quick before you move on, or like go dive a little deeper, I'd have to say it depends. Like it depends on the day, depends on what's going on, right? A lot of times, like I mentioned, with us serving girls.
It's okay. If you just listening, you should throw on a video and see me rolling my eyes, because you're the audience member. There's always one woman in the audience when I say, which one is your primary focus?
Okay, individuals.
Thank
if I had
you.
to choose,
They're
individuals.
like, oh, well, I like them all. I'm like, okay. So listeners, yes, pick one.
Individual.
Okay,
I'm with it. I'm with it.
So, and now here's the next question. Don't answer it right away, though.
I got you.
How does your primary focus, how does it show up at work? So I grew up out in the rural, and back in my day we called it poverty. You know, working class, whatever.
Country girl.
Yes, I am to the core.
I know.
I know you know. My puppy is a pork chop if things go south. I know we just lost listeners on that. I apologize. But you can take the girl out of country, but you know. So I grew up very individual focused. When you're trying to survive, it's individual focused.
Absolutely.
My world was individual. When I first moved into Minneapolis, Minnesota, my first job was working at the Salvation Army. Overnights, 98% of my job was individual interaction with other folks. I then started working with the St. Paul Police Department. Again, individual. So at that time in my life, no surprise, my primary focus was individual.
Gotcha.
That's how I would view things first. Now, my question to listeners now is, so how does that affect how you show up at work and the questions you ask? Because it does. My employer sent me to a conference, and I was listening to it. This guy speak. Within 45 minutes, I think I did this. You know me. Like, excuse me. I'm like, buddy.
Just like that, too.
Excuse me. Thumbs up on what you're saying. But how do I take what you're saying and use it when I'm working individually with someone? Because that's my primary focus. Yeah. Now, there is no such thing as a right or wrong primary focus. Absolutely. And it changes in a lifetime. So listeners, you can look back, that period of my life, I was really individual focused.
Exactly.
Any listener, answer this. Have you ever been promoted? You've been a boss, and I know you're a boss.
Absolutely.
So once you get promoted, many times your employer pays you to now think institution first. You're supposed to do what's best for the department.
Yep.
You're supposed to do what's best for the agency.
I'm following. I'm tracking.
Now, this is why, just a side note for our listeners, this is why sometimes when we promote within, we don't realize that with that promotion, we are asking people to move to a different primary focus, and we don't prepare them for it.
Yeah.
So I know
for myself,
so myself, I was really a great individual worker.
That's big.
Now all of a sudden you promote me, and I failed some jobs because I didn't realize I was supposed to now do what's best for the institution. Because when I got promoted and my buddy Bobby came in late, I was like, "Don't worry about it, man. It's okay." Because Bobby had covered my back. Well, of course, that was not in line with what the institution wanted.
Right.
So do we have those when we do promotions within? Are we helping people understand? Hey, you were individual focused. Now you got to be institution.
9 times out of 10, the execs, they don't even have a clue as to that's even
a concept,
happening.
Right?
Yes.
And that what we're asking.
Exactly.
And so that's for our listeners. And then I was institution primary focus as I got promoted. Then I started to work with communities throughout the United States and other countries, and so communities became my primary focus. And then I got off the road for a little while. I became an executive director like you, and policies was my primary. Because man, did I realize as an executive director, I got to understand whether it's local, state, or federal, but policies was my primary focus. Wow. And what I've heard from, I work with big corporations like General Mills and Target and stuff. And what I heard from them is, Jody, on page 7, that mental model of the societal system is really powerful because when our employees on our teams identify what one of their primary focus is, then we can create space for them to start to ask the questions. Where before, when we didn't know what their primary focus was, I had one guy, he goes, I thought someone was kind of being insubordinate with me because they were like, well, how's this going to affect our employees? How this is going to affect our client? You know, for me, it was off-putting, but they're coming at it with the individual focus first. So when we think systemically, I am talking about all four of them, the system that it creates, and that it operates in a way that does normalize one identity over the other. And a societal system always gears towards the identity that is normalized. But you are so right. We can't think systemically all the time. So it is very important that as listeners, we name what one of those four, how do I show up? You know, what do I listen to more? And how does that affect the questions I have or how I sit at the table? Because it does, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'm curious to know, and you may not be able to answer this, like we might not want to, this might be a whole nother episode. But it's really interesting how you mentioned when you are in the, let's say, C-suite or in that executive space, or, you know, you've been promoted to a space where now you are managing people and you're looking for them to do these, you know, these things. And it might be, you know, they might be individually focused or not understanding how to be institutionally focused. I also am thinking of how we start this conversation and how as a human, I'm bringing only what I know to the table also. So like the left-handed with the door. Right. So it's like these dynamics that are happening. So when you work with these companies, like how do you pull both of those together to get one who is in a position to manage others, or like how do you get them to deal with their stuff and the company stuff?
So yes, it could be a whole episode, but take what we're talking about in this episode. Number one is awareness. So number one is looking on page 7, look at that mental model for ourselves and for our team.
There we go.
You know, okay, how am I showing up? What's my primary focus and what are others? Number 2, and this is a tool, any initiative you have, any work project or any big social justice initiative, like, you know, we want to eliminate poverty or homelessness or any project that you have, you want people that are working on that project with all 4 primary focuses. Wow. So it's so much easier for me to sit at a table and talk about a project with other people who their primary lens or the way they look at the societal system is individual. Because we'll talk about it with ease and we'll talk about it from that angle, but we won't get the project done in its entirety. I need someone at the table who is their primary focus is individual, someone who's institution, someone who's community, and someone who's policy.
Yes, and then we all come together.
Now, it's a harder conversation because when the policy guy is talking, I want to roll my eyes, but I know that that's important. It's for this work project to happen, policy has to be addressed. Yep. So
we want to position ourselves best in that space. Yeah.
So the short answer is we have to have the awareness of ourselves and be open to others. See, that builds that capacity, girl.
That is.
And then knowing that it is needed. Any project we work on, we want people who are looking at it from all 4 so that we're dealing with it systemically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to throw you a wrench. I'm going to see if I can throw you one. What about in families?
Absolutely.
How do they deal with that in families? Because we might not, in a family, we might not necessarily have to deal with corporations or institutions.
Yes. Well, and I hate to go there but a lot of times, a lot of our solutions, they get political. You try to say that word for me. The politics come into it, you know. But a lot of times, in our family, we have those who are like, stop blaming the individual. And look at the policies that created this. And then we have those who are like, whatever about the policies, that person just needs to do this or this.
Yeah.
So even in our families, there's some of us who really like to look at the policy to understand why
is our family like
why
this?
Is somebody the way they are. We want to look at the policies in our community, and some of us just want to look at, no, it's individual choice, man. If they weren't just a knucklehead, we wouldn't have that.
Got it. That's good.
So it's both sides. And then sometimes that's where politics come in too with that, and that word that I couldn't say there, right? But that piece as a family. Now, what I want to be clear with is that the societal system normalizes and it gears towards one identity, that leads to two different experiences.
Bring us back.
One is not better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so being left-handed is not better, worse, or than being right-handed.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So we want to get out of the either or thinking.
Come on.
So that's a big
Both
tool
and.
for a listener.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's a big tool
Both
for
and.
listeners. Is to build capacity. We want to hit the pause button. We want to gain more insight, awareness about ourselves, open to others. And then we want to get out of that either or. Well, either my way's right or that way's right. And we want to work out of the both and. Both left-handed people and right-handed people have had, hard times and good times. And how do we learn from that? Wow. Then go back to that societal system. When we show up with that type of capacity, now we want to look for people who are really looking at the issue from a policy level, a community level, an institution, an individual, because now we show up, we're looking at it differently, but we have capacity to hold what each other is saying. Ooh, that work project or that initiative is going to take off. Yeah. We're going to have some conversations that before we got tripped up on because we didn't have awareness or capacity. So that's all those beautiful tools in this episode.
Well, I am really excited about the journey we're going to take these capacity builders on, because who's not a capacity builder with us?
We all are.
You know what I'm saying? So this was so good. Y'all, this is us building capacity within ourselves, our communities, and institutions. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be with us, and we're so honored. We will see you soon.